Okay, I'm calling to order the meeting of the Oxford Downtown Development Authority, July 17th, 2023. The time is 7:02 p.m. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, let's see who's here tonight. Mrs. Colvin, would you take attendance, please?
Johnston. Here. Schultz.
Yes.
Charles.
Yes.
Howard's absent. Colvin. Here. Carey.
Here.
Here. Here.
Moss is absent. and Cook.
Here.
Okay, item number 4, informational meeting, and Mrs. Westbrook, would you explain the purpose of an informational meeting?
Purpose of that is, we didn't take it off there. That's the purpose.
I'm wondering why it's on there, but okay. Number 5, public comment. I see nobody here, so we can move on. Consent agenda. Approval of our proposed agenda. We do have a few changes. Somebody I can go through and mention those if you'd like. Under unfinished business, we're going to add 9C, TIF plan. And under, here, number 10, we're going to remove homecoming parade, and our executive director can explain a little bit later on, okay? But we don't need to cover the thing in its entirety. Okay, we all good? Mm-hmm. All right, moving right along, consent. We approve the approval of the proposed agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed agenda as modified.
And I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries. Approval of the meeting minutes. Pete, should we do all this together, B, C, D, or what do you think? Or should we separate them out?
We can do the minutes. If there's no corrections, I make a motion to approve the June 2023 meeting minutes.
I'll second that.
Okay, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. So we've got included already C and D. You want to do that separately?
C and D, I'll make a motion to receive and file the police report and the code enforcement report.
I'll second.
Okay. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Moving right along. Item number 7, the financials, money. So let's,
Motion
go ahead.
to approve the financial statement, revenue expenditure reports, and paying the bills for June 2023 in the amount of $12,770.43.
Okay, we have a motion. Anyone second that?
I second.
Oh, Catherine seconded that. Discussion.
Yes.
Grace?
There was just a typo on the 2023 DDA bill run chart.
Okay.
It's the second to last from the bottom. It's the contracted services admin, Microsoft Office. It should say computer subscription.
Okay. I will have it changed.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, good catch there, Grace. Thank you. Okay, any other discussion, questions, commentaries? Okay, roll call, please, Catherine.
Johnston. Yes. Schultz.
Yes.
Charles.
Yes.
Colvin. Yes. Carey.
Yes.
Clark.
Yes.
and Cook.
Yes.
Okay, 7B. Bills, what you were just...
We did
Yeah,
that
we just did that, sorry. I'm jumping down again. Item 8, DDA reports, executive director's report.
I'm going to try to make it shorter this month because I feel like I always keep stealing committee members' thunder. And we had some really awesome committee meetings this month. So we just had a really busy month, but I think one thing that I just wanted to say overall is how far ahead we are this year compared to the last two, not only in planning, but just getting information out, keeping up on social media. I kind of handed that off to Kimberly and Reagan. Reagan's been a huge asset having her on board, but it's just taken so much off my plate so that I can focus more on the administration stuff and grants and things that are coming down from Oakland County. And then also just being with the businesses more, which is something I know that we talked about very early on, is just meeting with them and understanding their pain points and just learning more so that, you know, we can just continue to progress. So it was just a really good month and a lot of meetings with business owners this month, but also potential businesses that are wanting to come into the community. And that was just so wonderful to see this month, of people that are like, hey, do you know of any spaces that are coming available? Or what do you think about partnering with this business and, you know, co-sharing a space? And it's just really neat to hear that so many people want to be here to grow their business. And we at Economic Vitality went in to see the, you know, the smoothie guys, and just to hear their plan and how they're already expanding. It's just really, really neat. We did a ton of work overseeing the projects that are happening, so the placemaking projects, and then also preparing for the parking lot projects and the other side placemaking that's coming up. So a lot of phone calls and a lot of site visits this month. We did some successful trainings with Oakland County as we talk about our strategic strategy as part of that Main Street program. We did a good training with them on that and learning just more about what they're looking for in the upcoming year. So I'm just excited. I'm excited about the fall events coming up. I just feel like the community is really all in. So kudos to all you guys, because I just feel like we're going forward and we're not stopping, and we haven't slowed down at all. It's just really neat to see.
That's it?
Sorry, that's it. That's all I got. I'm not going into details. I'll let the committee chairs do that.
Well, I think that's one of the things we're all trying to work on this year is committees. You know, we have 4 committees, as we all know, and we've revived those the last 2 years. That's one of the big positives that have been accomplished the last 2 years. A lot of the committees were dormant. And the other thing is trying to put, not a straitjacket on our committees, but at least some degree of organization. The 3 components are, what? Have an agenda, take attendance, have minutes. 3 things. And Grace, again, last time, you know, that was a nice format that you helped put together. So that helps us do those wonderful things. Let's see, what's next on our parade here? Organization committee was postponed. EV committee,
Yeah?
fire
So
away there,
we have a little
Miss
bit.
Carrie.
Yes, we have a little bit of an extended update to, this month, because we had 2 meetings. One was actually a makeup for last month, and I really want to, you know, put out a lot of appreciation for the other members of the EV committee for coming to 2 meetings, 2 weeks in a row, and I really think we got a lot of work done between those 2 meetings. So some of the key takeaways are that 2 weeks ago, the July 5th meeting, we really sat down and started to take a look at a pilot program, which we're going to get to later on the agenda in more detail. But we started wanting to think about creative ways that we can bring people into the town and really get them excited about being here, spending a whole evening in the community. And it's kind of, I think, really relevant timing that we're thinking about this right now. At the state level, the Office of the Foundation Liaison recently put out a population study for Michigan. And the key takeaways for that are that our population in general is declining at a pretty significant rate. The population that is here is aging, and that we don't have sticky enough places as they've described it. So one of the kind of proposed things that we can do to make our communities more attractive is to make our places sticky, make people want to be here, want to stay here. So I think thinking about this program and everything that we're doing really on the DDA right now is very timely as we think about placemaking and attracting new people into our community. So we've come up with a pilot program that we're calling Hometown Hop. Like I said, we're going to get into that a little bit later. We've put together, between the 2 meetings, an implementation plan for a pilot program. This would utilize the trolley. We would partner with neighboring communities. We've outlined a couple of potential candidates for that as well right now. The idea generally is that we will use the trolley to bring people from the neighboring community one evening for an excursion in the town, partner with our local businesses to, have some coupons or things in a swag bag. Maybe they can have some live music or something that night. And then we will alternatively have a trolley night that will go from our town to our neighboring community with a similar kind of situation. It's a great opportunity for us to collaborate with other DDAs and communities, and a great way for us to get new people into Oxford to see how great our downtown can be. Something else that we also started to talk about at our second meeting on the 12th was the idea of a town tailgate party. We thought this might be a great opportunity to use the Washington Square for the day of the Oxford Lake Orion football game. We know that that's a really big event, really fosters a sense of belonging in our community, and we thought that this could be a good opportunity to, again, bring some businesses together, bring our community together, and really utilize the square. Outside of those two things, as Kelly mentioned earlier, we got to meet the owners of Smoothie Guys, which is a new business that just opened. If you haven't been there yet, it's right by the footbridge for the Pollyant Trail. We met one of the owners, Greg. He was very, very nice, has some very exciting things going on. They are using their location here as kind of a test or a pilot of their own. They would like to start franchising the Smoothie Guys. And they said that already they've had an incredible amount of support from the community. Their smoothies are delicious, so highly recommend stopping in there. And I think those were all of our major points that are going on. But that's why you'll see two sets of agendas and meeting minutes for us this month around. And I'm going to stop talking now.
Well, I'm going to fill in a little bit because I can't help myself. But I think it's a way to utilize the trolley. We've been doing this run back and forth, Oxford and Lower Oxford for a while. I think we can expand out, as Grace was saying, maybe pull some more people in from other areas. I think that's an opportunity also, as Grace said, is to have some synergy with other DDAs, be it Rochester. Clarkston, I guess, is going to be putting together a DDA pretty soon. I happened to talk with their township supervisor a couple times, even yesterday, with a picnic together, and I talked with Jose about that. The other thing too, the tailgate, years ago, I remember when I was on the Boosters Club, we had that first big game here at Oxford with the Little Lizards down there. We had 8,000 people at the football game. 8,000 people at a high school football game. And I know we worked pretty diligently, and we had a lot of happy people. We set up extra concession stands so people didn't have to wait in line, cool stuff. So I think the tailgate that Grace just brought up, I think they become a fun thing and bring some people in the town and utilize Washington Square, right? I mean, we've got this great thing, let's use it while we've got it. Who knows? It could be sold and could be a 3-story hotel 2 years from now. Or maybe Bryce will buy and put some property there of some sort,
Dorothy's got a question.
Which I think these are all great ideas. I think it's fabulous. So will you guys work hand in hand with the PR committee then? How does that work? 'Cause
For the tailgate?
yeah,
For both?
Yeah.
I think we'll get into that a little bit more with the implementation plan that's further on the agenda, but the idea is that this would be kind of a DDA-wide program, but since it's utilizing the trolley and also I think focused on the kind of economic ties between our community and others and really bringing the businesses together, I think in large part it'll reside with Evie, but it's definitely going to rely on the promotions committee quite heavily.
Yeah.
I think, Dorothy, you bring up a great point, though. There's a lot of overlap in our committees, isn't there?
A little bit. I was just trying to, because I read your mission statement or your, I just wanted to be clear. I feel like, I love this stuff, by the way. I think it's fabulous. All of it's great. But
Fabulous.
I didn't see how it fit what you guys do based
The
on what I read.
underlying premise for the Hometown Hop is that it's drumming up a new economic base in the area by bringing in people that haven't been here before. So that's kind of the premise that I guess formed that idea.
And I'll throw
No
a few more
worries.
things in.
I just wanted understanding. Yeah, no, it's all great. I think it's nothing but good, for sure.
Yeah, creative and a lot of good things.
Absolutely.
And I think
I love
it
it.
fulfills our mission statement,
Yep.
Thank you, Grace. Good job. Speaking of the devil, let's have the promo committee report.
I was absent. I was on vacation in the beautiful Upper Peninsula. So.
In that case, Grace can do that too.
It wasn't at the promotions
So
committee.
Ben and Leanne, but we'll fill in. It's okay.
Yeah, this
I know, you missed like the best one.
Really?
Getting ready for Scarecrow Fest. So we went through concerts that are phenomenal. The Eva Swiss concert 2 weeks ago was our best attended concert. They were actually wrapping around the ox on the sidewalk because they couldn't get into the park, and I've never seen so many people. But I was making so many balloons that I didn't really pick my head up until 9:15, so pictures had to tell the story. Farmers market, our vendors are so just enamored with how this year has gone and how much, I can't believe how many people have come to us and said this was my top day at any market they've ever had. I mean, it's just incredible, and Kimberly did a great job with, you know, holding people to, you know, you can miss 1 week, but you can't miss any more. We charged more this year. We made over $3,000 off the farmers market with just vendor fees. We have put very little advertising. Bryce has done a little bit on some of our posts on Facebook, but a ton is just our vendors posting on social media, and we got the word out quickly, which is kind of going back to what I said at the beginning. We're just so far ahead in the planning process. We just went back to the vendors that we have for market and say, hey, we don't want to open it up to Scarecrow Fest yet for the public until you guys tell us if you want to be in. 13 vendors that day committed to Scarecrow Fest to be a vendor at that market. So it's just really, really neat to see. And we've gotten a ton of positive social media from people who have been attending and buying. So it's been really great. We went over everything for Scarecrow Fest. Just trying to, again, get ahead of it. Leanne's gonna run the 5K and the 1 mile again this year and do all the planning for that. We committed Ava Swiss already to being the performer that day, and she's gonna do like a Disney song theme for the kids. And then we already started to reach out to people that we had last year and get their commitment on things. So we're gonna meet in 2 weeks again. We're not gonna let a month go by so that we can make sure that we're, you know, we have everything ready. So I worked on the sponsorship forms today, so we'll have that out tomorrow to the businesses. We already had a couple people ask for certain events already without even releasing that form. Let's see, we're changed up a couple of things for the Scarecrow Fest, just, you know, after making notes from last year, but a lot of it will kind of run the same just because it's always been successful. We did put out a call to the community to grow the biggest pumpkin. So we want to do a community pumpkin where we have a farmer bring in the largest pumpkin that they have, hoping that people will want to take pictures, but we want everybody in town to sign it. So like whether it's at Scarecrow Fest or some of our other events downtown, and have this be like Oxford's community pumpkin and have it as a draw. So we had a couple of farmers reach out to us after we posted it and said that they are growing some of those, like that type of pumpkin. I didn't even know there was a type, but we're hoping for something big this year. Let's see. Oh, we also scheduled our downtown decor, which then design committee kind of took it over from there, and we kind of are working with them to figure that out. And a ton of action items, as you'll see on our notes, on our meeting minutes.
One thing we always have to be careful, and this is great what we do, and we've had so many discussions, and I know Dorothy and Pete have said this over the years about the fine line between, and I say this in a teasing way, Kelly, so don't throw anything at it, is not overdoing the party planning part. We got to be careful. We do promotions, but it can't be the only thing we do, and it can't drive everything the DDA does, you know. But so we get, like you said, the farmers and others, we farm that stuff out. That helps everybody. So the DDA doing that. Sorry for that speech. Okay, design committee. You brought that up. Are you the design committee person again?
I can do design committee.
All right, Catherine.
So design committee, I was a little late, I apologize, but we ended up managing just fine. For those of you who don't know, Nicolette was the chairperson of the design committee. She resigned. So one of our first orders of business was to get a new chairperson, who is now going to be Scott Cree, who is actually a great find. He's a planner for Oakland County. I mean, he has just a great deal of knowledge and just so
Well,
many
before you
things.
go on, that's something the board has to agree to, having somebody as a chairperson.
The board has to agree?
Yeah, that's not something you guys just do on your own.
Okay, I thought we could do it in the committee, but
No.
we can vote on that, I guess. What do we need to do to move
Well,
forward?
among other things, we need to see that form filled out. We never got
You
that.
have it, I sent it to you
Okay.
before,
Yes, I made sure
when
of
he
that.
first was on design.
Okay, we'll take a look at it. But,
Well,
all right.
And I would like to highly recommend him. He has a great deal of experience. And
Well, I've heard nothing but good things. I met him one time. I'm
Yeah.
not saying he can't be or
Okay,
shouldn't
yeah.
be. I'm just saying there's a protocol we have.
I was
that-
unaware.
Yeah.
So, well, I'd like to recommend him then, so going forward, if we can do, we'll do that in a future meeting. Then we talked about our goals and objectives, since we hadn't picked them before, and so you can see what we've decided on for our goals and objectives going forward. We discussed having kids' activities in each area, one kids' activity in each quad, something that'll draw the kids in, something that we can, they can take out, play with, put back, you know, the big Connect Fours, things like that. People talked about colorful hopscotch boards, things just to get kids to, you know, jump around and play in the areas. We discussed having quarterly budget discussions. We didn't actually have that discussion, but we will do that going forward. Discussed future programs and grants. There's 2 currently outstanding grants, right? The MEDC and MEDC placemaking. So we're hoping those come through.
We'll know in September for those. They're
Mom!
they're rep-
Mommy!
Sorry. That was on silent. I'm awake. Sorry.
That was great.
Golly.
They're both RAP 2 grants, and one is we're just a part of Oakland County's grant, and then the other one is the one that we applied for on the behalf of us and Les Thomas for the party shop.
That's anticipating to come through in September.
September we'll know about both, yep. And
That-
we
that-
know that we can't get both, we will get one or the other or none, so we just wait and see.
And they're going to be a little bit picky. Beginning, middle, end of September, what's?
They're hoping by the beginning of September.
I think if that goes through, the whole town should have a giant
I
tailgate
think we'll
party,
all
don't you
have
think?
the party, exactly. We should have a huge celebration if we get that done.
You know, even though I'm saying don't be a party planning organization, I'm certain our village manager and village council president would probably want to throw a party.
There we go. It's settled. We'll just set the date.
We woke her up again.
I'm here.
We discussed a couple of potential upcoming grants. Summit Physical Therapy is probably going to ask for a sign grant, and Lori's Pet Paradise wants a facade grant. But we'll get more information on that going forward. We talked about the giant pumpkin again, but well, we're all excited about a giant pumpkin. And then we did discuss changing the time, so I don't know if all of you have the time. Some of our committee members just can't make it at the time we were meeting, so we're moving it to second Thursday at 9:30 a.m. instead of in the afternoon, just so we can have all the committee members show up. So. And I think that's it. Anything else, Kelly?
Comment from Mrs. Cook?
I noticed that the committee meetings were posted on Facebook for notice, so, and I think it said 2:30 and maybe it was 2, but it sounds like that's gonna change
It's gonna
again,
change,
so
yes.
we'll just update that. I think that's great to let everybody know. The other thing, Chairman, would you entertain a motion to appoint Scott Cree at this time, or do you want to wait to a future meeting?
I'd like to wait till a future meeting.
Okay.
And then, but as far as functioning at the committee, I have no problem with him doing that, Catherine. Just want to make sure we,
No,
Like
let's
I
follow
said-
the correct protocol. I just was
yeah,
unaware of what.
I think we all want to do that, you know, so. Does that make sense, Kelly?
Yep, if there's something more you wanted to look at, I wanted to respect that, but otherwise, I just wanted to take care of it. Thank you.
Okay, are we all set with our committee reports then? Thanks, Catherine. Okay, unfinished old business, the Northeast Quads engineering proposals. I think this is a big issue for us. It's something that cost a lot of money. It touches on some sore subjects, or sore subject over the past few years, if
All
I'm,
of this is sore right now.
yes. So,
Well, I think it's great.
Board recognizes Mr. Joseph Madore, who wants to discuss, let's first of all, Joe, if you'd give us a moment to turn to that page in our packet, please. And you're under the contract for engineering services, and where do you want to start?
Yeah, there's 2 of them with row in the packet. One is for the northeast parking lot rehab.
Okay.
That's the one I think we should tackle first, because that is right around the corner. Council approved, and I sent over the notice of award today to row to provide to the contractor. So last month when we talked about this project, I mentioned something about how we have people on site and all those things. I didn't have any of this data. This came like the day after your meeting, so weren't able to provide any baseline or numbers, whatever. So first and foremost, on the very front page, you'll see the construction, staking, administration, and observation and testing breakdowns. One thing when I met with Rod last week is I think there's a little heavy on the hours for the construction observation. He's showing 167 hours. They might work 10-hour days, they might work 5 days a week, so you might get 50 hours a week out there. And so that could be like a 3 weeks and then a little cushion. But I don't know if it's that big of a project, so based on what they were saying before, that it's that long. But the importance of having somebody from an engineering perspective out there, for one, they have to go out and mark the grade stakes all around the perimeter. They mark where the removals are, where they start and stop the removals, so the contractor knows exactly where to stop and start. And they do that with their engineering folks and their survey folks to mark those grade stakes along the area. So again, it's a large area as they're moving part, and putting down the gravel and density testing, and then paving it. They have to make sure all the grades are right, so we end up with a parking lot that doesn't puddle everywhere. So it's important to have these observations there. You don't want to go through all this expense and build a parking lot and have it not be right. And the contractors are capable of doing a good job or a bad job, right? They all want to do a good job, but you need to have somebody there to be sure they're following the specs. The engineering company will take the weight tickets from the gravel trains, they'll take the weight tickets from the asphalt trucks, so they know exactly how much quantity is being put down. It's possible that some of the asphalt in the bid will be less if they put it down, 10 yards less. It might be $1,000 less in asphalt. So that's another reason why you have someone on site daily, writing daily reports, making notes, bumping the contractor along to make sure they're doing what they need to do, and meeting the specs the way it's spec'd out. Because it's inevitable that something always will come up, right? When we did our Hudson Dennison project, I mentioned this to council that as we went that last little stretch from the 5-1 building out to M24, which didn't involve our water main work, but it didn't make any sense to leave that 200 feet of old junky asphalt. Of course, so we go down there, and what do we find? An old catch basin under the ground that's just falling apart. So here we are, now we're pulling this thing out, getting all new catch basin structures put in and installed. Again, you're there, but it's one of those things that comes up. So I would suggest that you go forward with this proposal. Rose Engineering is obviously the village engineer. They've done many projects over the years. I mean, they were here for 30 years doing many projects, even in the 90s. It gives us when you look at the construction administration, part of that is they will take those weight tickets, they take all the quantities, they measure the quantities that the contractor does, the curb amounts, the aggregate amounts, they bring those into a tally and compare it with the estimated quantities in the bids. They put together a pay application. That pay application, they fine tooth it, and they approve that pay application and send it to us to sign off on in order to pay those quantities that the contractor has done. So that's another part of it, what they're doing. They're ensuring all the quantities and measurements and things as well. So we're paying what was installed.
So Joe, what is it you're asking for?
I would look for permission to sign this contract on behalf of the DDA. So we can.
The dollar amount being?
Yep.
30,900.
Yes.
It puts us at about 277 for the entire project. So that's with the parking lot bid and this. But okay, so that's really tight on what we tried to even budget for this year, but we can't, there's just no way that we can go without them being out there on site. Because after going through just this smaller project, I just would be fearful that we wouldn't stay on time, that things would be done wrong, and I really feel that it's necessary to go. We might have to tighten up in some other places, like more January through March before the next TIP plan gets approved, depending on, who comes back and who doesn't. But we have to, if we're gonna do the parking lot project this fall, we need.
Joe, what do you, when you and I were talking about it, could you repeat some of the numbers you were talking about? That's where I was really going. I agree with what you're saying there, but you were, the $30,900, and then you were talking about, or is it 39? I forgot now.
30,009.
30,009, and you were saying that
Observation is.
Our quote came in a little bit less to kind of compensate for this bump up in services.
Yeah. So the engineer's estimate was around 289 or something like that.
Yeah, so
We had 3 contractors
just
above
right
and 3
under
below.
290.
Yeah, and so we had 3 contractors below it that came in bidding, and then 3 contractors above it. So the engineer was kind of right in the middle of where the bids came in. So they were pretty accurate in their end of things. And that was strictly for the contracting work, right? That had nothing to do with this part, the administration and the staking and stuff. But again, by having them there, there's no way that I have the time to be out there every day. I was out there a lot, even when they were on our Hudson Dennison project, even when we had an on-site daily inspector as it was. Because there was a lot of things going on there that affected a lot of people, a lot of homes, a lot of water service lines, a lot more.
What was the
curb.
initial thought we had for the project, not counting this $30,900?
I'm not sure.
You know, the cost of the project, I can't remember what the dollar amount was.
Well, I think the engineer's
So
estimate
about
was like,
289, did you
I think it was
say?
like 289, the engineer's estimate, wasn't it?
That was for just the work done.
Right.
We've already paid Rowe for this project roughly 25,000 for the surveying and everything.
But I'm just talking about the actual construction part, and this, I thought it came in less than 289, because I'm trying to figure
Yeah.
out.
247.
So, I guess
Yes.
I'm trying to build an argument in your
We're still
favor by
under.
saying, because we're still, even though
We're
we're
still
paying
under.
another 31,000 bucks, we're not really going overboard with what we estimated. Does that make
Right.
sense? I'm trying
Right.
to,
Yep.
I'm trying to get you guys to say that.
That, I think
I'm
she
trying to
mentioned
help
that.
you.
She mentioned that a minute ago, that even with this added in, it's around 289, which is around what we had budgeted for. Yeah, that's what she referred to a minute ago, but yes.
Trying to help you, Joe.
Well, I thought she already covered it, so. But again, there's a lot, the way the water swales off the back down Edison Alley, there's a lot involved with this project, so.
So if I can go through our board and just see if we have some, I would like us to have some questions. So if I can start with Pete, since you have a lot of experience and I can pick on you down there. And I think that's Pete with the beard, I'm not sure, but it sounds like Pete.
I totally understand what they're saying, and I agree with it, and I'm fully supportive of it. I understand what they're trying to do, so.
Okay, Catherine, yourself?
I just, you're sure, we know we have a need for this oversight, because it's been a mess before, right? So, okay.
Well, it's just so involved. There's a lot going on. Questions come up daily. And then when they bid the project, they bid X amount of yards of aggregate base, they bid X amount of yards of hot mix asphalt, HMA asphalt. Well, depending on what they put in the ground, that's what we pay for. We don't pay necessarily their bid. If they bid 1,000 yards of asphalt, but they only put in 950, we're only paying 950. Vice versa, same is true though, right? If they bid 1,000 yards and put 1,050, and we pay for 1,050 based at the unit price in the bid. But by having them there and keeping an eye on them and tallying everything as they go, and then they take those and run them through their system and produce a pay application that comes to us that they've already fine-tooth combed it and that it's accurate.
All right, Dorothy.
I have 2 questions. So are we doing it behind the brewery down there as well? Or where are we at with that property?
I'm sorry, behind what?
The brewery?
Oh, homegrown?
Yep.
No, that's all private property behind there.
All right, so we're not dealing with that.
No, this would be the north end of 22 North, which is the old Williams Art Glass. We are going to go a few feet into the property on the back by the dumpster. I spoke to Mr. John Parker, Dave Parker, because there's an old footings and stuff, like an old concrete barrier for dumpster enclosures, perhaps, on the edge of his property to ours, and it drops down quite a bit. In order to get the grade right, we have to go about 10 foot into the property, and he's fine with that.
Is this gonna be it? I feel like I keep seeing more bills for this.
Yeah.
Is this gonna be it?
So my only fear, and this is something that, I just wanted to let you guys know too, is if issues do arise, then that's really tough on us, because this is the top of where we need to be on this project and where we can be before we collect more from the TIF, especially going into a TIF renewal year where in March, there are certain entities that we know might not be coming back. So that's the only part that this project is butting up right next to that. So if it were 277 and we knew that it was not going to come in any higher, no problems were going to arise, my fear is if they start digging, if something happens.
Yeah, and again, this is their estimate of the quantities and the hours needed, right? The construction staking, that's pretty solid. Density testing, that's quite solid. The observation of the hours, we don't know exactly what it is. And again, the bid is based on certain quantities that was all spec'd out and estimated, right? It could fluctuate a little here and there, up or down. Same thing with their time on site. They could get this done in 10 days.
Is there a contingency built in for the contractor who's doing the work? So that way if there is an overage, we have that budgeted or no?
I think it was very slim though in their contract, wasn't it?
I don't think they have anything, I would have to look at. So when the engineer gives an estimate, they'll say, here's what we estimate, and then they'll throw a 10% contingency on it. It might be in this range, but now that the bids are in, they are what they are.
So they are set.
Yes, but again, that's based on the quantities of removal. I mean, you start removing something, and then you have to go a little bit farther over. Let's say there's poor soils at the edge, and you can't just pave over that bad edge. You might have to take a few more yards of asphalt or undercut it out. You might run into a catch basin out there that's, terrible. That's, you got Bob's chair.
Chiropractic adjustment?
It happened.
So yeah, so
Attorney at Village Council.
these aren't not to exceed prices on either the contractor nor the engineering company.
They're not.
No.
That's what I read. Okay, so this is the budget. So
Yes.
if we're making a motion to authorize you to sign the proposed contract as presented, it'd be for this project budget.
Right, but as they state right there, compensation will be based on our billable rates for the staff assigned to the project, and they propose services to be budgeted for. Again, but until it's over and done with, we don't know exactly what those hours on site are. Again, staking is pretty solid. They know to get the crew out there, spends a day going around making the grade stakes, engineering, surveying crew, and the density testing, that's pretty solid too. They come out, they use a machine to density test the asphalt.
I have similar thoughts to what Kelsey brought up, that, we have pretty close estimate, because going back to what our executive director said, we're pretty thin right now, so we gotta be careful, and I like what you said. So if they, so many yards, and they go over that, they've gotta prove it, right?
Yeah.
The old school
That-
thing, prove your, what your work is. So-
And that's what the onsite inspector does. He'll do the quantities. If gravel train comes in, they have weight tickets. The asphalt trucks come in, they have weight tickets. How many yards, how many on there, and things like
Joe,
that.
do you look at that stuff as well? Was it coming across? Or not?
No, not really. The
Not that I
engineers do
expected
it.
to, just curious.
But
Gracie, what do
if
you?
they prove it, we have to pay it.
Right, Grace, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess my question would be that 289, is that just for the northeast parking lot project? Okay, so this would not come at the expense of what we could do in the other parking lots in the future projects?
Right, so this is only for the northeast
Okay.
and only up to Williams Art Glass.
Yeah.
Bryce?
I was just wondering
I'm
for the
sorry.
budget, not the.
Oh, yeah.
No, I think my questions have been answered.
Now that you've,
Except for what
Do you
chair
want that
I'm
one?
sitting next to.
Get that one,
So-
Oh, I put that one there last week.
FYI, we have budgeted for new chairs in here. We haven't got them ordered yet, but it's getting increasingly obvious that we need to do that.
Kelsey has a comment, please.
Would you entertain a motion at this time?
Absolutely, it's time for it.
Okay, I would move to authorize our village manager to sign on behalf of the Downtown Development Authority the contract as presented for Northeast Parking Lot Rehabilitation Construction Engineering Services.
Yeah. Seconded, supported by Mr. Schultz. So it's one more opportunity for further discussion. Anything anyone wants to bring up? So Catherine, if you can do a vote, please.
Yep. Johnston.
Yes.
Schultz.
Yes.
Charles.
Yes.
Colvin, yes. Carrie.
Yes.
Clark.
Yes.
And Cook.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. All right.
Stay there, Joe.
I'm not going anywhere.
Oh, darn.
So the second one from Rowe is a design project, engineering services for the southeast quad placemaking.
I mean, Playscape sounds great, thanks, Joe.
No playscapes. I'm not a bah humbug guy when she starts talking about putting kids'
We know.
stuff in each quadrant and getting the toys out and stuff like
He
that.
doesn't
I'm
like
not
chalk.
well, and I don't care for the sidewalk joke. So just get that out of the way. I always look at it from a trip fall, beauty of the downtown, those things, different perspective. Anywho, they're currently working on a northeast placemaking area right there behind Red Naps and the school building and stuff like that. This was something that was done without any engineering design and drawing. The contractor, made some statements that, oh, we don't need it, and then came right down to it. Well, we need some topographical survey, so we had to call our engineering out to get some surveying done so they get the elevations right, because there's a lot of things on these sidewalks, and that's a pretty flat area back there. Dorothy, you know the area. It's not sloped much, but there's various dry wells or catch basins and structures on the ground there at varying levels. So you have to make sure and get that right. You have to get it out. We were initially, when we decided, as it swoops around the sidewalk down to the east behind the old John Burt building, there's a couple transformers down there that make that sidewalk non-ADA compliant because it's only like 2.5 feet between the curb and the transformer, and then between the transformer and the wall, it's like 2.5, 3 feet. So neither side was ADA compliant. And Ryan from Birmingham was working at one day. Well, what if you move that curb out and make it 5 foot? So to his credit, that was a good idea. So we're moving the curb as part of this sidewalk. It's actually part of the side parking lot because that, so that's going to be, it's being done now, and it'll be kept track of separately. That work that's being done now with the new curb alignment. It'll help for parking and plowing as well, according to the DDA. But it's just a lot of things come up. We were going to maybe lower, and when we were going to move that curb, we thought, well, we could maybe lower it and get the water to slope all the way out to the parking lot. Well, it's not. There's so much space out there, it'd be too flat. So we're leaving the curb kind of up a little bit to get the proper slope to the drainage structures and collection points that are already there. That being said, it would be best if this project had gone through a normal design, engineering, and out there to make it more accurate and better for the contractor to work with. The Southeast project, which we're pivoting to, has a lot more variations in the elevation, right? If you've been through there, they slope down, there's a lot of water boxes, many downspout collection points right up along the buildings.
What else did you say?
Yeah, many of them. Yes. I think
Familiar
your
with
neighborhood.
I'm familiar with one of them that didn't exist for a long time.
I think one of them might even be tied into yours or something, I'm not sure. But anywho, so there's a lot back there, and in order to get that, to not have to wrangle with the contractor and hope that they can get it right with all the variations down there, when we walked with our engineering and Don Brantley and Kelly and I, we thought it's best to get that one actually designed and engineered. So when it goes out to bid, everybody's bidding on exactly the same. They know exactly what the specifications are, what's going to happen to this downspout, what's going to happen to that structure, things like that. It'll be a better job in the long run. We're going to try to, I think, tie in some of the downspout collection points into our storm drain that goes out into the parking lot, maybe eliminate a couple of those as well. And you just can't go out there and do that willy-nilly, rip out the concrete and just start laying pipe. It's best to have it done professionally drawn. So that's what's in front of you there is a proposal from Rowe to do that. Now, I don't know the timeline on this one.
So this project is set to begin the end of August. We're waiting, Les Thomas is the one that put in the other money for this project behind his buildings there. And the footings are already dug, but they're doing a 2-tiered structure there. So we are waiting for that to be put in before we do this project. After meeting with, and Joe was on this walk around too, after meeting with Les and all of his contractors, for us to do it before, we could ruin the work that we just did. It didn't make sense, so that's why we tabled it. The 17.9 on this one, that's a big part of our $50,000 T-Mobile grant that we got. So I put in a call to Les on this one. We have a meeting this week just to figure out if, one, he would be willing to put any additional in for what we're doing, but then two, also maybe understand if he's done anything in this area. Is there an area where we can cut off that maybe Rowe doesn't have to do, and just see if we can get this down to a little bit less. I think for us tonight, I think we approve it up to this amount because the project is supposed to start next month. And then if we can bring it back, we will. If not, we'll just shorten the distance that we go with that flat work out, and we'll have the engineering done for the next grant and we can continue on. But at the end of the day, we have to do it right. So it is what it is.
So if you guys don't mind, I'll follow the same format, just asking us to kick in our 2 cents worth. So I'm going to start with Bryce before he falls down. Bryce, do you want to make a couple points or questions?
No, I don't have anything specific. I'm looking forward to what everybody else has to say.
That brings you up,
So
Grace Carey.
what is our total budget for the southeast parking lot?
So what we're doing is we're taking anything off, and this was actually in the grant when we applied for the Consumers Energy Grant. We're taking anything that we can off there after that project is completed and bringing it over. One of the things that we already did is we already slotted furniture because we purchased in bulk, so for over there. I don't know the exact numbers only because we're still making it through this project, but I know we will have a portion left over to continue the work on the south side. Les and I have sat down numerous times and looked over those numbers. It will really come down to, do we need to take the fireplace out on that side? You know, it's gonna be those extras that we wanted that we might not be able to do right away. The flat work will get done because that all has to be at the same time and we wanna be able to do it right. We might have to take back the lighting right now. We might have to take back the fire pit right now, things of that nature, but at least we can put those things in later. And it could be within a few months, you know, that we can do those things, but for the grant purposes, we have that 50,000 from T-Mobile and roughly estimated another 50 from the consumers that we'll be bringing over. I just don't know that exact number.
And then I have a second question. This is maybe a bit more for Joe, but would this engineering possibly reveal like significant stormwater infrastructure work that might need to be done beyond just like storm drains off of buildings? I'm just wondering because there are stormwater infrastructure funding opportunities that possibly
It's possible we'll come up with other things, and again, they aren't doing a full engineering of the stormwater stuff. They're just indicating like where it will be and where they should go. Just so the contractor has a layout. And one thing that we did do when we first met with Paul, and I didn't have him change it, he's not preparing bid documentations and everything for this one. Whereas the other one, we already did the bidding and bid documentations and the bid award and all that stuff on the other end. We did that back months ago. So this would have to be bid out. We may have to have them prepare some bid docs at least for us to get it out there. But it doesn't include any work on existing catch basins or the manholes. But we don't know what we'll find in the older stuff when we get down there.
My comments would be kind of along the lines we're talking about, the old rule of life: if you want something done, do it right. There have been some issues where people do things poorly, or, you know, personally, I remember years ago, my little building, I got a call from my tenant because she couldn't flush the toilet, the sinks wouldn't work, everything was frozen because the water lines coming to the building were frozen. This is February, of course. And I went out there to try to, you know, obviously see what's going on. It cost me a lot of money, because I had to hire a company to come out and dig up the concrete, redo the lines. And when they were doing it, they found out there's lines down they didn't know about. And they weren't dug deep enough either, which is one reason they froze. So going back to what Mr. Norris is talking about, let's make sure things are done the right way.
Yes, and again,
Rather spend $5 now than $500 later on.
yes, and this is the design work, but again, when we were talking to Paul, this is the way this is set. We didn't, we aren't asking them to be on site on this project like a large parking lot project.
Kelsey?
I know this is kind of like a quick turnaround, and so Row is the way to go, but I just wanted to put out for consideration that we don't have to use Row. We could get proposals for different engineering consultants in the future if we think, you know, we could do better with price.
And I'm going to come back to myself. That's a great point. Thank you. You know, Jim Sharp does it over at the township. I've talked to Jim. He lives in Oxford, by the way. So he's available. But that's something for all of us to keep in mind. We don't have to use Row. And you said, yeah, they've done things for a lot of years, but that also might be an indictment, too.
Right. Well, for, I don't know, 10 or 12 years, no Action Frost was here, I think.
Okay. But I'm just saying, as Kelsey said, I agree with what you said. We can look at other people besides Row. Dorothy?
I have a lot of thoughts on this. I guess my concern is because a lot of the infrastructure and stuff is older, is there concern that we might just use up all that money once we break ground and find all kinds of ancient stuff? Like, that's my fear, I guess. I'm not saying let's not do it, but I can just see where this is gonna be like going down a rabbit hole a little bit.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It just kills me to see that big number, but I know what we just went through behind NAPS and behind your old building there and all the issues that we ran into by not doing engineering first. Yeah. And I just don't see a way around it if we don't want to do it right. I'm just afraid that we do it and we make it beautiful and this winter the ice settles in and just ruins it all.
And if I recall, the 50,000 T-Mobile isn't all that there is for this project, right?
we'll bring over the other 50 from consumers.
Okay, that's okay, so.
Catherine?
No, I mean, I tend to agree. I'm worried we're gonna find a lot of problems, but they're gonna be there whether, so we have to do it. It doesn't matter really.
Right.
At the end of the day, we have to do it, right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Mr. Schultz?
Joe, do you know approximately when that stuff was all done back there to begin with? Was that in the 90s or in the 80s? The streetscape back to the sidewalk, the curb, the trees.
I know the one that did the one downtown, it was like 98 down, but I don't know about on the backside.
I mean, obviously at that time, that was all done. I mean, the sidewalks were all tore up, the curbs were all tore up, drainage was all worked on, everything was tore up at that time and done then. So, I mean, I would be surprised to come up and all of a sudden now this time, just because they pull up a sidewalk, find some big catastrophe underneath it or something.
Well-
I feel a little comfortable, but,
Well, good to hear, seriously.
you know, the biggest thing is we're getting the grades proper and that kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
that's more important, so.
To that point, a couple years ago when Comcast was coming in and boring and tearing up sidewalk stuff, they unearthed a sewer manhole that had 4 inches of concrete on it that even Don Brantley didn't know was there. So I mean, a full structure with a manhole was cemented over. So, to the point you don't know until you know. But yeah, I wouldn't expect this to go down any, because if there's any room, there might be some bid documents to prepare or something like that. There might be even a couple other things you just want to make sure they add in.
I would like to see them do, if they're gonna do this, I want the bidding process done with this,
Yeah.
but I don't wanna owe them more for the bidding process, especially after we just gave them our business for the Northeast
Yeah,
parking
yeah.
lot, the NAPS project, and now this.
Yeah, and to that point, and I think Kelsey has a valid point, you could perhaps get a different engineer to do something differently, but the biggest concern I have with that is like our auditors. You can get a different auditor every year too, but the continuity is tough on that. But working with one and having a relationship with them is good in the long term. I assume the township has been using Jim Sharp at Sharp Engineering for many years as well. They know the system, they know your system, they know your policies. I would hate to go through all that machination to save $2,000, and then you have someone in there just never been here before, and they don't know Don Brantley, they don't know where this is, they don't know where that is. So that's my only cautionary tale on that kind of a thing. Is I like my personal lines of insurance. I don't like to change those. I like my agent; they've been with me a long time. You know, there's a reason that the continuity is helpful.
Okay. So, would someone like to make a motion? Kelsey?
I'll make a motion to authorize Joe Medora's village manager to sign the contract for engineering services for the DDA Southeast Parking Lot Streetscape Project as presented. Would you like a not to exceed amount on that?
I think that makes sense,
$17,900.
and I'll second that. So it's been motioned and seconded. Any further discussion? No? Catherine, do a roll call vote, please.
Johnson?
Yes.
Schultz?
Yes.
Charles?
Yes.
Colvin, yes. Carrie?
Yes.
Clark?
Yes.
And Cook?
Yes.
How you doing, Joe?
Good. The only
You're
thing I
stop
see-
now, you're batting pretty good.
the only thing I see coming down is perhaps some construction staking on that. There's no density testing on the concrete at least, so that's a good thing.
Grant project updates, Northeast Quadrant, anything else, Kelsey? Or Kelly?
Just the only other thing is they dug the footings for the arch, and we need to go back to the drawing board. Joe went over this afternoon, did a site visit, I did one this morning, and just with that 2 feet stamped pretty concrete that they were gonna do around it, they said maybe we wanted to add a little more texture, because as the salt gets thrown this winter, it doesn't wear as fast. So we're just trying to figure out, but the look won't change much. It's just gonna be a little bit more hardy. So, but everything is going well, and I've just been probably overly communicating with the business owners a little bit over there on just their progress and what's going on. So the business owners, though, they taped it off nice. They had entrances to all their back areas, so we're okay.
Item number 10 on our agenda.
You added a C.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're
Yeah.
right, 9C.
Okay, so this TIF plan is separate packet because we just got it today, so that's why it's being added. you saw the one last month, we were at like 17.5 for McKenna to come in and run this. We're up in March for our TIF plan, so I went back with Mario and I said, hey, can we get this down to 11.5? We're able to do some of the work on our end. We can work alongside you. The county can cover 7,500 of the 11.5 that we asked for through our tech grant for this year. And they're actually thinking about letting us have the other 1,500 for our in-town visit as well. So the most that we would owe is just the 4. And I think that for what McKenna's gonna do and working right alongside of us, I just think that this is a no-brainer. This is, you know, the next 20 years for us. So it's so important to get it right. And, you know, Joe loves working with Mario and he's been very responsive to me. And I think that between our board committee and then McKenna, I think that we should just approve it and get it into motion and start having our public meetings and everything that we need to do to set us up for a great renewal in March.
I think Dorothy, Pete, and I want to get reimbursed for what we did all the time before.
Right?
At least we know we're worth 11.5. Right, Dorothy?
Right, exactly.
That would be nice.
Hey, you got a t-shirt.
We want Lions tickets covered. That's what we want. Wait a minute, we already did that, didn't we, Pete? Dorothy, she wants Lions tickets. Okay, so do we want to entertain a motion to that effect, somebody? Or do you want to read through this, or how do we want to approach this? I mean, to reiterate, we're looking at using McKenna to help put together the TIF plan and move forward. Kelsey?
I'd move that we approve McKenna to prepare the Oxford Downtown Development Authority's TIF and developmental plan for a total not to exceed fee of $11,500.
I'll support.
Moved by Kelsey Cook, supported by Pete Schultz. So let's have an opportunity for a discussion about this. Anybody have a comment? Okay, roll call, please.
Johnston,
Yes.
Schultz,
Yes.
Charles,
Yes.
Colvin, yes. Carrie,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. We're good at spending money.
This is giving, I was very anxious about this meeting. That's a lot.
Well, I think the overall headline, I think we all would agree that we're trying to do things in a quality fashion. You know, we just want to make sure we're doing, not just for our term, but for years to
Agreed.
come, right?
Great.
Okay. Washington Square private events, I'm under 10A. And we have the Jeep event, we have the Real Men Wear Pink, and then the tailgate. So let's start with the Jeep event that we talked about. Go ahead, Grace.
I just wanted to ask a clarifying question because earlier you had mentioned there was some discomfort on behalf of the owner of Washington Square about having private events. Is that going to be something we're talking about for these 3? Okay.
Yep, so what I want to talk to you about is, we have 3 events here, so I feel like we can just group them into this one discussion under 10.
That part we can, we might want to cover a little bit separately.
Sure,
Go ahead.
sure. Yeah, but under 10A, these 3 events, so when it came to the St. Patty's Day event, the owner called me because he was uncomfortable that there was going to be, you know, the drinking in the square and the, that Sullivan's was running the event. And I let him know that that was actually a partnered event with the DDA, and as soon as I said that, he was like, oh, no problem. Like, I didn't know, he's not on social, so he had just gotten a call about it. He's like, anything that the DDA is partnering on, I'm 100% comfortable. And I said, okay, I just said, you know, if you ever had additional questions or if I ever wanted to do some kind of private event, I would always come to you first. So he's wonderful to work with. So when we got the call about some of these other events, you know, Real Men Wear Pink fundraiser, that's number 2 on here, we partnered with them last year. And, you know, the DDA was a big part of that, and we kind of hosted with them. We were on site. You know, the tailgate, for example, is something that we would be doing. The Jeep one was a call that we got in. Rod had passed him to us. I had just said, I would rather, because we're already running something with Sick Pizza, I would rather you just tag onto that and make that an event with them, because we're not going to co-host another car event. And, he really was adamant that they wanted kind of their own thing. So I said, I'll bring it to the board. But I just feel like if we're not already doing something, I just don't see us adding more events and getting into more of that private event in the square at this point.
A couple of things I'll bring up, and then Grace remind me. One is any property owner's gonna look at liability, whether there's alcohol being consumed or not, right?
Yep.
Someone trips, falls, that kind of thing. So that's an obvious question. So does the DDA insurance cover these
Yep,
events, as long as the DDA is involved to some degree? Is
That's
that
right.
correct,
We work
Mr.
with
Medor?
the Village and Joe, and anytime we have something like this, like even St. Patty's, he and I talked about beforehand, the car shows, Real Member of Pink Oxford Tailgate, like that would all be covered, but that's something that's coming directly from us, like co-promoting. So it's not necessarily that we're, planning the event and taking that time, I'm not a party planner. But it is something that we are promoting and that we're putting our name on. We always want to make sure that what we're putting our name in aligns with what we're trying to do in our values.
And a little background here. Mike Carr, who's been around that for a while and done a lot of volunteer work, as is his wife, he'd talk with me about doing some of the Jeep Club. And, the issues would be is, well, if you're bringing Jeeps, obviously you don't want being parked on Washington Square for all the reasons we would imagine. But I did say we had others to consider, such as what our friends at Sick Pizza put together. But I did suggest he call Kelly to make sure any loose ends, and I appreciate what you mentioned him. So at that point, Grace, you had your hand up first.
Yeah, I was just wondering, so if we don't allow like the Jeep event to happen in Washington Square, is there an alternative location that we could recommend to them, or is there a partnership that we could help facilitate? Because that is part of what the DDA does as well, is facilitate these introductions and partnerships between community members and
For sure.
businesses.
So the
I'm
first thing
going to
we
interject
said-
again is I will give
Yeah.
Mike a call myself, and I'm going to suggest he talk with Scott Taylor at Sick Pizza
That's what
about
we did.
organizing
Yeah.
it. Right.
That's what we did. So the first thing that came to mind was, can we set up a meeting between you and Scott Taylor? Because Scott would love more people to come to the car show, so I actually found this as more of a win-win, but he wanted his own event, so that's why I said I'd bring it. But absolutely, we never just say no. I feel like we always try to give them a different way for it to happen.
Does that make sense, everybody?
Yeah.
Kelsey?
So I'm going to go back a little bit to the insurance coverage aspect, because so is the DDA just sharing information about these events, or are we like sponsoring it? Because you said like for the Sullivan's one, you said the DDA's
Yeah, so we
Or-
co-promoted that one together.
Co-promote, okay.
We did the trolley earlier to help support the event, things like that. We did a lot of the flyers, but then we also kind of oversaw it so that we knew that alcohol wasn't being served outside in the square. We were following social district rules where they still had to go to the back bar inside the restaurant to purchase. So we oversee it in that capacity too, just to make sure that they're following all of the rules of the property.
Okay, that
But that's-
sounds good.
Go ahead.
But,
Mike.
so insurance coverage, so the village insurance extends into Washington Square, is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, yep.
So if somebody trips and falls Washington Square, the village is gonna get sued, we're gonna get sued, the restaurants involved are gonna get sued. So I'm trying to make sure, like, do we have sufficient coverage? That's gonna make our premiums go up, we're not gonna be insurable for the square anymore. So here's my attorney mind just unraveling, right? So like, how do we make sure that with these events that it's not seen as our event? It's just we're helping doing the promotion.
It seems like we're kind of caught between 2 points there, because if it's our event,
Yep.
then we're in a sense, if I'm the insurance company and I'm going to say to you, are you sponsoring it? And if I say, no, I'm not sponsoring it, I'm just promoting it, they might say, then we waive coverage.
Well, we're working with them to promote that event like it's under us, like we're the umbrella. That's why I think we're so specific, because we've had this insurance discussion multiple times. We are very particular about what events we umbrella over. And then also, it is in social district when we did the map for the state. So just like the sidewalks of the village would be in social district,
Well,
this is again in social district.
I know when I did Lone Ranger, we had a lot of people, as you know, and the DD at that time was really uncooperative, next to nothing for us. We bought our own insurance. You know, and for a lot of reasons. I want to have it anyhow because I didn't really trust what's going on. Plus, we got zero support from the DDA and very little from the village at that time. So we just bought our own. And that was a one-day event. It wasn't terribly onerous, but it was something we did on our own.
That'd be similar to the Christmas parade. They have to get their own insurance.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a pretty tiny parade. That's, you know.
Yeah. So, but it's a separate event. It's not a village event, right? Special event application that comes to the village council. The village council approves that entity to hold that event. And so then they get their insurance. But to the point, even when social district was coming around, of course, I reached out to our agent, and this isn't anything brand new to them. They were coming around the state, so they really didn't have any qualms about the social district in general, right? There's the state law, and hopefully you have good actors and good restaurateurs that are following the rules. And even when we first approached the gentleman from Washington Square, he obviously knew that that was in the social district and that the DDA may have events there with alcohol. Didn't seem to bother him at all because we have the coverage. I actually ensured that our coverage would extend to that private property as well, you know, for DDA activities, right? So, but that's the fine line: is it's a DDA activity or a partnership. It has to be at least a minimum of like a partnership or a co-sponsoring.
Co-sponsor.
Yeah. So that's what we need to ensure. So you run into the risk of, well, you don't want them to do all these other events, but they're kind of being brought together.
Well, I think the deal there is that we don't want the DD actively involved with all these events because you've got a million of them going on. So if we sponsor, that's different than doing all the heavy lifting. Kelsey, what are you going to say?
It seems kind of gray, so I'm just wondering, whatever direction we go, maybe we have a more formal process like the village has where you have a special event application. And so it's clear what each party's roles are, and then it'll help with liability purposes. Because even if our coverage extends, I mean, does that include indemnification for others? Does that include attorney's fees? Because, you know, you can spend more on that than everything else sometimes if it's not part of something you can draw on your coverage for, so.
So what you're saying is have a form that somebody would fill out, let's say the Jeep people, or even Scott for his automobile thing, a form that would be simple enough?
I think you're gonna have to be kind of strategic, I guess, about, you know, the language on the form and what our intent is, you know, and make sure that it lines up with how we see the insurance or liability playing out, just to make
Why
sure.
would it be any different what the village already has?
I mean, that could be fine, but the village never says like this is a village event, whereas the DDA does all the time. We're not into the gray area of promoting and
Right.
making it seem like we're putting on events. It's
So
totally
would we
separate.
push, for example, like Real Men Wear Pink fundraiser, would we push them maybe to do the park instead and fill out a special event application and not partner?
Well, I guess the differentiation, I think, is those who want to utilize the Washington Square, because that's private property that we have permission to use for DDA activity, right? So that's the part that gets us into the muddy water, I think. If anybody came to us and said, hey, we want to do a Real Men Wear Pink event in Centennial Park, it would come to us as a special event application, council would approve it. That's a separate entity, separate insurance, indemnifications, all those are in place. The only part that I think that gets us into the gray area is when you have like the Jeep or the car shows, or the Sullivan's thing was a little gray, but again, you guys were right out there with them, and it was, you know, but I think, to Kelsey's point, eliminating as much gray as possible would be better. When the St. Patrick's Day or something like that runs around, if it's a truly, to your point, Rod, you don't want them to have to do 10, 11 events, right? But if somebody else is doing 90% of the work, but it's a DDA event, you bring it all to us, the DDA puts it on, 90% of the legwork and the volunteer work and the promotions, whatever perhaps is done, it still might qualify, check your boxes, another DDA event.
But that's the point I'm trying to make. If it's, in a sense, it's a DDA event in name only, in effect, even at 1% I prefer, not 90 or 10. But I think that would be okay, but if it's a DDA event, to satisfy the insurance company.
Yes.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, right,
And you
I
know,
think
the
that
rule on
clarifies
insurance is they give it to you and you can prove you don't need it.
right.
Right.
So I would say a special event application would come to the board to use Washington Square, and we would make sure that they have their own insurance, so that way it's not necessarily triggering ours, or we could point to theirs. I don't know, that's just an idea. And then we can still do the help promoting it.
So can we do a form, I mean, can we do this for these events here in a quick turnaround, just by plagiarizing what you already have?
Possibly.
I just don't want it to be something where people feel like they can just fill out the form though and
Yeah.
write the square, because I don't want to get this into where everybody feels like they can just run out Centennial Park, because I feel like the business or the landowner will not approve that, because
Yeah.
it was very clear that if the DDA is like partnering on the event, that's fine, but he doesn't want somebody just renting the parking lot.
So then the answer would be the forum plus the DDA board would approve the event.
I think by having that official action on those, if you say, look, we approved this, the car show on Wednesdays, whatever, that gives you the broad acceptance of, yep, we acknowledge what we're doing and in partner with.
And then maybe we push these other ones to Centennial Park that want a private event, because now Centennial Park is part of social district, so that helps, I think.
Yeah.
So to replay this, we would say that for those who want to use Washington Square, complete the form, and the board would want to approve it, so it becomes a DDA event. Otherwise, you can use Centennial Park with that process that you want to follow. Make sense? So we understand, all as board members, there's two pathways for an event. Right, Kelsey?
Yeah, I just want to say, I think this process will help with the differing events, you know, so you have like Sick Pizza's car night, you know, if they had an event approved, you know, maybe it would say for these months every year and the board would consider it, versus then now you're having kind of competing interests coming in, and so all of a sudden we have to make decisions about like, based on our own preference, it seems
Right.
like, which way do we go, so.
I just don't want people to look at
Open-ended.
myself and Kimberly in particular and say, well, they're picking and choosing what they want to partner on. That's
Right.
my biggest fear.
And that would, this would remove that burden on you, I think.
You can blame the
so.
board is what you like to do.
Right.
I always do.
I know.
Yep.
So I've heard.
Yeah.
He
You
has
can,
something.
I think, you know, on the Jeep Club, I mean, if they're actually gonna be a club, then I would believe that they should probably have their own insurance to begin with, if it's a club.
You know, I don't know, when Mike contacted me, we talked about it briefly, and I don't know if they have a formalized club, but I think it's a good point. I'll ask him when I give him a call. I'll probably give him a call when I get home tonight, just to see what's going on, you know. I mean, I think overall, I like the concept because it's something new, and to our point earlier that what Grace has taught, it brings some new people into our town. You know, so it fits a lot of those things, other than legal stuff we're talking about. Grace?
I'm wondering if part of this proposed application, there's a section on it that's more relating to why it would make sense to collaborate with the DDA on this particular event or project, since this does need to be collaborative, like partnership building. So maybe it has something similar to our committee application, where it has our kind of, you know, the Main Street pillars that we have. Which one does it fit into? How does this fit into the DDA's mission, vision, values? Maybe some of that in there as well.
You're so good. Can you like kind of outline for me that, like what you would like to see? Because you did such a great job on the committee forms. Okay, thank you.
but
Joseph?
to that point, though, I think the flip side of that would be, you don't want it open to where you can get 20 of these, right? You have what you have, and you want to tighten them up. And if there's an expansion like that, you guys talk about it maybe each January and say, you know what, we have these 4 or 3 major events, and we have 3 minor events. Maybe Witches Night is the 4th one of those. And then you say, are we good there? I mean, you know,
Yeah.
and these are our events, so to speak.
Perhaps maybe, you know, I've used this before where I say, well, if you want to partner with the DDA on an event, you have to come pitch it to the promo committee, come and explain it, and then they'll make the recommendation to the board. That probably will,
Yeah.
90% will not do that. So maybe we go that route even.
Well, what we're gonna do is we're gonna need to form, that's what we're
Yeah.
out here. So the easy path is to use the existing form the village has, right? That's the easy path, and I think that seems
Yeah, we
most efficient.
tweak it as
Do you agree,
needed.
Kelsey?
With some modifications, like what Grace is saying, because if the authorization from the landowners that it has to be a DDA collaboration, whatever it is, that needs to be part of the form.
Okay.
And you might just do that for the 2 or 3 existing ones that need to be tightened up that are already in place.
All right, can
Not
we-
so much as a way to invite everybody else to add a new application in.
How do we get this form done?
Well, again, I have the form that we've worked on and we updated it
So you
slightly.
can do it this week?
Yeah. I could share it with you and you could modify it. It wouldn't take a lot of modification to add in those aspects you're
All
talking
right,
about.
shoot me a
like
copy,
which-
and in fact, shoot everyone a board a copy if you would, please.
It's on our website.
You'll do it this week? Okay, well, you can send it to us because we never look at, what
I'll send it
website?
to you.
The one that we
I
spent
got it.
$6,000 on? That one?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. So for instance, like the Witches' Night Out, I mean, I think the only ones that give me any gray area concerns are the ones in Washington Square. Aside from those, I have no concerns with them. The Witches' Night, it's more of a collaborative. It doesn't, it goes throughout the whole town. Doesn't really get any gray area of liability. Liability gray area is where I get concerned.
It utilized Washington Square, but we did put that under the DDA umbrella and voted on that last year, so.
Yeah. So, okay.
All right, that was a good discussion. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And the last one on there, just the tailgate, I did want to mention that I chatted with OCTV, and they would like to partner with us on this and do the projection of the game on that big, ugly, red-brown area. But
Have them paint it.
right, yes. But I think it'll be really cool because I asked them, I'm like, I don't know how to do this, to be honest with you. And we talked about it in Economic Vitality, and they were like, oh my gosh, we would love to come and do the whole setup for you, so.
Now, and I'm gonna read this event, like I said earlier, when we did the first football game between Oxford and Lower Oxford, we had 8,000, so there's a lot of people. And then the last couple of times, we had a lot of people at 925 Social watching the games there too. So that was kind of fun.
From downtown, so.
This would be, I think, a great event. Plus, we talked about utilizing Washington Square.
Yeah,
Grace?
and it's at Lake Orion this year, so if you want to stay in Oxford, you can.
Yeah, our thinking when we were imagining this was that it would really, I think, build off of our Stronger Together partnership that we have with Lake Orion. We had discussed having the trolley run that night to take people from the square to the game and bring them back after the game. So again, it would be, bringing some of that partnership to the forefront as well.
As long as they know who's in charge. All right, so what do you guys think about the tailgate with Lower Oxford? You like the idea, Pete? Against them, that game?
Whatever.
Whatever? Come on. I know Dorothy's excited about it.
Wearing pink.
Okay. Another fun thing for Mr. Medor, he's just,
Oh, get back up
he's
there.
probably never going to come back again, so this is really good.
Weckle, community update.
I
Or you can have
cannot
Kelsey
wait
do it.
to hear this.
He's a co-conspirator.
I talked to him on the phone today.
All right.
Can I get that update? You get up there, but in a good news, all those talks with the businesses, right, that I've been telling you guys about, we found 2 businesses that would like to come together and collaborate for that second level of the Weckle property. So I talked to both of them, we talked over pricing, we're meeting with Mr. Weckle on Tuesday morning to look at the actual, set in stone prices and the build out. But it would be really awesome for these 2 businesses to come together. And I'll share them offline with you guys if you want to know.
Go ahead,
But
Joe.
it'd be really cool.
So this is agreement. So how this came about is when a realtor came into our office a month or so, 6 weeks ago, and was asking some questions about the properties over there, mostly the ones fronting on East Burdick, what their zoning was and what someone could do there. And I heard him talking to Vicki, and she said, "Oh, I'm getting ready to list them." And so my antenna went up, and I talked to her about, my concern was if they sell, we want to ensure any funds go towards the completion of the parking lot. Obviously, that wasn't her concern. Her concern is to market them and sell them and make some commission. But I reached out to Mr. Weckle right away, and I told him those concerns, and I told him what we would like to do. And he was open to the idea. So if the any sale happens, any of those proceeds are put into an escrow account. There's various components still left outstanding in the parking lot, listed in there, and comes to about $195,000. If you looked at those. So if some of these are done, obviously, and there's a sale, then obviously not all 195 would be put away. If some of those are already done, only enough to complete what is still outstanding would have to be held in escrow. So we put this together. We signed it at council, and I know we discussed it with you guys last month, but we didn't have anything in writing then. So here it is in writing. Mr. Weckle and the council have signed off on it. and it's up for you guys to sign off on as well.
So I'll go start by, where do these dollar amounts come from? Like for landscaping, $15,000, was it just a
Basically,
number out of the air? Or
I
do we
looked
have-
at, I came up with those numbers based on site plans and everything, looking at some unit pricing and stuff like that for wiring and stuff and curbing. And when I showed him to Dave, and he was surprised at how accurate they were, of what's outstanding, because it's kind of what he had in his mind, same thing. So, based on the site plan and look at some unit quantities around other projects.
I'll say the board, when I read through this, I talked with Joe last week about it, and then today I called him too, because I had some questions about it. I'm really excited Joe took the initiative in going forward and heard about this. I think that's really a pat on his back to take that initiative. You know, otherwise I would have slid through again. I did have some questions. I thought, maybe there should be a personal guarantee on here for Mr. Weckel. Maybe you can address that issue there or not, because I'd like to make sure that's done, that he doesn't continue to delay and delay and delay. But that's my only objection, but I don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. I think this is a good deal. So let's go through and ask some questions about this. Pete,
When he stood up in front of us and everything earlier in the year and promised that by mid-July, the parking lot would be done. If we agree with this and sign off on this, you know, we've got it spelled out here, whatever, about the parking and so on and so forth. I don't want it to go past the end of July without a parking lot. I mean, I don't want him to sit here and hopefully he sells the building, then I can go ahead and make the parking lot. Because as it looks, it almost looks in here like, you know, I sell a little bit, I'll finish off the parking lot, because otherwise, the parking lot's not gonna get done. It was supposed to have been done 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, whatever. But again, this past winter and spring, when he sat there and swore up and down that by July, actually, he was supposed to start working on it in March, but that it would be done by July. So I don't want to have him get any inclination out of here that he can turn around now and just wait till September, October, November, and when I sell the property, I can pave it. That's a concern. I mean, we still have no guarantee that parking lot's going to be done.
So how do you address that, Joe, since there is no guarantee and he's been giving us excuses till the cows come home?
So, I think the only difference right now is that he has those listed for sale. And that's all this is really addressing. We don't want him to get away with the money.
Right.
Right? So that's all this is really addressing. We don't have the leverage that we would like to have on forcing the construction. You know, the PUDs are only good for so long. It's, for all intents and purposes, is expired. The contract really isn't enforceable, according to Mr. Davis at this point. So all we have to do is help and drag someone over the line with completion. And when this came up, my only concern was I don't want this money to go elsewhere if these sell. I have no idea what they're listed for. I haven't even checked. I don't know. I don't know if they're potentially could be sold or not. I don't know. This is only addressing the option or the possibility of the sale, and that's still not getting what we want. That's all this is really trying to address.
Did you address Pete's question though with Mr. Weckel about the parking lot that's been talked about?
The only
Yeah,
the only thing I've heard recently is DTE, because the way some of the parking lights are, the parking lot lighting do have to go underneath the curb area. I still don't know, DTE isn't exactly sure where they're going to put the transformer in or something like that. They're waiting perhaps. I still think plenty could be done outside of that area. You could run the curve all the way down this way and all the way around Stanton and back up if in fact there's an area up in question up in the northern end.
I do think he needs to come back to village council meetings and give updates, because I do feel like he was making progress when you guys were requiring him to come in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're gonna be sitting here in December and it's still gonna be dirt.
We all know this project has been dragging on forever and ever and ever, so anything we can do to speed it up. I understand this is only trying to address making sure we recover some funds, but anything we can do to get him moving, maybe get him back in front of village council is a good idea.
So the one action plan, we have him come back to village council and that's it?
Well, I mean, that's at least a good idea. If other people have other ideas to get this going, I know we've tried pretty much everything. It's been going on forever. If there's something we can do to get this moving, let's do it. I don't know what that would be. I have no magic.
Dorothy?
I just have a question. So there is no accountability whatsoever. There is nothing legally right now binding him to finish or give money if he sells those properties that we made a deal with him on. Is that what I hear?
I said the PUD, the way it was and the way it was written, has expired, and by law they expire after a certain while. So,
So you're just clear of it? Like it's like non-binding, like he just has ownership of said
You have-
property and can do with it what he
I
wants?
suppose you could go back to a breach of contract and go to the courts, from what Mr. Davis said, but I don't know. I'm not the attorney.
It blows my mind.
Grace?
I'm just wondering if this situation started before I came on the board. If
I think
could
before you
get
were born.
A bit more context. The whole situation. Because I'm not familiar with a lot of what they're referencing.
It's your fault.
So the PUD initially was drafted in 2016. I think they first signed in 2017 with an extension here and there. There was a couple changes, minor in the front end. Mostly the amendments that came when I came at the end of 17 and into 18 were dates more than anything. Of course, then COVID came and that provided a year or two of delay. But that is one or year or two out of 6 or 7 years.
So is this just a renewal of the agreement that expired
This has
then,
nothing to
or
do
this
with,
is
this has
completely
nothing to
different?
do with that. This is only, hey, the properties that are there are being listed and marketed now. If they sell, we want to ensure that that money doesn't leave the block.
Yeah, okay.
That's all this is.
So just to be clear on this, Grace, this has been an ongoing project here for a long time, a lot of complaints about it, a lot of excuses.
Broke ground in 2019.
But this is new here in an attempt to make sure the money doesn't leave. Bryce, how about some comments or questions from yourself?
I'm just learning a lot, like Grace is right now.
Yeah, I appreciate
I don't
that,
have
though,
any
having
value
some
or
context.
questions to add.
Well, I would think in
Puts
all
this into
seriousness, I would think all of us learn that, there's, and going back to what Dorothy says too, I think in the future, there's gotta be some concrete accountability rather than just, a smile and a handshake. Seriously, anything we all vote on, just like we talk about trying to have our committees and things like that, we've gotta make sure we have some guarantees. Kelsey, why don't you go ahead then, since you're the last person up to bat?
So for a little historical context, this PUD agreement was extremely poorly drafted. I don't know who drafted it. I hope it wasn't Bob. But it really gave neither side any accountability. And the legal predicament we're in, without giving too much away, is just that we do have a legal right to pursue an action in court, but this is what Bob has told us. I'm not like speaking from my own head right now, but that it's in everyone's best interest to just try to get him to finish the project. I hope that he doesn't need this money to do the work, but in my mind, his willingness to sign something like this tells me he does. And so I do think that it will continue to be delayed. However, we'll definitely have him come back before council. I think it did seem to hold him accountable because he would provide updates. This is my book on everything he's told us, and I check and I go back and I make sure you said this then, what about now? So he does feel the pressure, I think, at least when he's in front of council, to provide some update. So yeah, in my book it says mid-July asphalt. And so last meeting we asked about that, and it's DTE now. So what's going on with DTE? But
The conversation today was super interesting because one of the tenants that would like that space has 45 days. She was notified today and it's in the village. She's 45 days to get out because they sold the building. And I said, Dave, how fast can you do a build out? And he said, well, the elevator, I think we have it ordered. I think the car will be here in October. And he made the comment about something else. And I just can recall our conversations over a year and a half ago of him saying that those things were on order. So that was very frustrating, especially because I'm bringing 2 businesses that want that space to him. And now he's going, hopefully by fall we could maybe get them in there. So that is my concern. The other concern I have, and I do think that we have to sign this. This is the only thing that's holding us to getting anything that we have left. But one of those properties that is for sale was a DDA property that he originally was supposed to have a building on. And that's super frustrating that he's gonna probably make over $200,000 on that little slot of property, and all we're getting back is, again, a parking lot that's not even finished. So that that's the only part where like, I'm like, okay, you're selling our property that we handed over.
Yeah.
Grace,
The good thing is if he does sell that.
Grace is,
yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, I was following up to what Kelsey was saying earlier. If we sign this PUD, do we still have the option to pursue other legal recourse for the previous?
This is not a PUD.
Oh, this is not. This is
No.
just about,
It's saying that if he sells it, we get some money potentially.
okay.
But go ahead, your question is still valid, it's just, you know, a different title, but is there still recourse is what she's asking, sign this, is there still, if the other
Recourse
things
to
don't go
pursue what
through?
wasn't fulfilled before.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's how, I know that's how Bob intended it. I'm just
Okay.
checking the recitals. I mean, it could, did Mr. Wackel already agree to the specific language?
Yeah, I have a copy on my desk that,
The village council did too.
yeah.
We didn't have it in front of us last month. This is the first
Yep.
time I've seen it.
I've shared it with them as all, because we got it, wasn't it the day of their council meeting? We got it?
Maybe the day after. I know you
Okay.
emailed it to us like
Right.
pretty quickly after.
But the village council has to sign off too, correct?
Yeah, and they had already approved us to sign off at the June meeting, because we hoped to have it done by the July meeting, and I literally got it signed the day before our July meeting from Wackel.
My understanding is that Mr. Wackel signed it and the village council has approved it too.
Yes, they'd approved it.
So we're third.
That's correct.
This is our best option at this point, I feel.
Well, I mean, I echo what Pete was saying earlier, it gets, whatever, you know, going back to Grace and Bryce, relatively new to the board, I mean, lesson learned for all of us, you know, I mean, it's just an ugly situation that, whatever. Any further comments about this? I mean, Kelsey?
Can I just mention, to follow up to Grace's question, so it's the last whereas says the sole purpose is to allow Wackel to market and sell the properties subject to the PUD. So I think that protects the,
Where are you?
First
The
page.
recitals?
Last word.
yeah,
Oh,
the last
okay.
whereas right before the now therefore. So it is, I remember Bob putting this specifically in here, so that way it doesn't, we don't give up any rights to pursue it any other way. This is just to address the listing and selling of the properties, so. Yeah, good question.
So what would we like, a motion to authorize Mr. Medora to sign this is what we're looking for.
Or Kelly,
Kelly,
PDA director.
somebody want to introduce that resolution or hold our nose and do this?
I'll make a motion to allow the executive director of the DDA to sign the Wackel property contract.
We have motion and support. Catherine will do a roll call on that, please.
Yep. Johnston? Yes. Schultz?
Yes.
Charles?
Yes.
Colvin, yes. Carrie?
Yes.
Clark?
Yes.
And Cook?
Yes.
On an education, huh? Seriously, for all of us, right? Not the kind we want, but c'est la guerre. Okay. Every month we want to talk about the trolley, don't we?
Oh, yes. Can we put one in, let me,
Let's just make it part of the permanent agenda.
yes, let's just kind of 1 and 2 together on here, so the pilot program, but the.
No, we have to do it separately.
All right. Well, we've already talked about the pilot program, so.
Well, let's just succinctly just run it by us
Sure.
again.
So I chatted with Oakland County Main Street to help me kind of roll out the pilot program to the other communities. It's really what they're focused on, that regional tourism concept. So of course they loved it. The other communities loved it because how many times have they asked, when are you gonna run the trolley to us? I think for us, this whole concept of exploring our hometown, and Grace, I think you mentioned the statistic that you're more apt to spend time in a town that's like an hour or 2 away than the town next door to you. And I just thought that that was so fascinating that, you know, we really don't spend that much time like with Clarkston or Rochester and things like that. So the other towns that I've already mentioned it to loved it. Roughly number-wise, if we do like a 4-hour event with all the cost of the trolley, it'd be like $250, which is, I think, hardly anything. even if we ended up doing a seat on the trolley for, you know, $8 a ticket, it would take care of that. So not to say that we're gonna do it like that, but just for numbers. So I think that we continue to, you know, figure this out and what this looks like and timing on everything, but I think it's a great idea. And Lake Orion's on board too, because I did say, you know, I still want this to be part of both communities.
That cover what you wanted to say, Grace? Anything you want to follow up on the trolley with that project?
Yeah, just some logistic follow-ups. As Kelly was saying, we've already started to do a brief feasibility scan with the neighboring communities to see who's interested and who's not. So we've identified Rochester, Clarkston, and Auburn Hills as potential pilot communities for this program. They're willing to work with us on this for the most part right now. We also discussed having the neighboring or partner communities covering the costs for the trolley for the event that goes from us to them. There also seemed to be interest with that. So overall, we found that implementing this pilot program would be highly feasible. As Kelly was saying, the cost would be quite low. I've also done a bit of talking to business owners downtown as well to see if they'd be interested in collaborating for that evening. It'll be hopefully quite promotional for them as well. Drum up some new business. So,
What day of the week would you run this? Tuesday, Wednesdays, or when we talked about it?
Yeah, I think the thing to note is that our consistency with the trolley schedule right now, running Friday and Saturday, is showing huge increase in numbers. And we haven't gotten any calls or Facebook messages about when it's running. I mean, it's been very consistent, which we're seeing the community loves that. So we would really not want to touch those days. So whether this is a Thursday or a Sunday or something like that, I don't mind what day it is as long as we're still consistent with our schedule for our business owners.
By the way, one thing, when I was doing some work too on this, one of the people I contacted threw out the idea of even doing a luncheon run. You know, we're thinking evening and stuff, but it could be, you know, a luncheon type run. So keep that in mind too as this gets explored. That might be a better idea, quite frankly, too. You know.
and that, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, I'm done.
The data that we have, or anecdotal data even, that we have on the regularity of the trolley, we took that into consideration when we were thinking about this as well. So obviously not as frequent as every weekend, maybe once or twice a month, but having consistency and a regular schedule for when the hometown hop would happen is something that we're also proposing with this.
Any comments or questions about that? Hope you guys all like the idea of the creativity. So cool, thank you. Private event requests.
Yeah, so we've had a couple people reach out to us. The MDA is one of them, Michigan Downtown Association. They have their annual meeting coming up, and we have hosted them on the trolley before, and they would really like it. They're going to some of our neighboring communities, and it's a Thursday in September, and Molly, Dina from the MDA, the executive director, reached out to Molly and I. We're all very close with her, and we would like to, I guess, like co-sponsor it because Oxford is invited as well on this, and really to sit on the trolley and be able to talk about our wonderful downtown. So it would be less than $100 for Oxford and Lake Orion, and then the MDA would pay the other $100 for their 4-hour stint that they would be running it. But I would just like approval to, you know, let the MDA have it for that Thursday night, but then also as we continue to talk about a pilot program, continue to talk about running the trolley for events and keep our mind open on that, as long as it, again, doesn't interfere with our consistency of our
Those are two
Friday,
things. The
Saturday.
MDA would use it on that Thursday
It's a
night?
Thursday, yep.
And where would they run it to and from?
Yep, I believe it was Oxford and Lake Orion to Birmingham and Ferndale area. It's just like a quick town tour, and they stop at some of the different businesses and then
Why would
come
we
back.
pay anything?
I'm sorry?
Why would we pay anything?
Yeah, so the MDA always asks for different sponsors for their events, and Oxford and Lake Orion is a big part of the MDA, so we just thought, you know, it'd be really cool for us to be able to kick in less than $100 and have our name on it. Any promotion that goes out from the MDA would have Oxford and Lake Orion on it as well.
It's not a lot of money, I'd say. Personally, we're okay with it. I just don't know why we pay anything personally, but Grace?
I mean, I think Kelly's point to this, where the MDA is a really significant partner for us statewide. They do a lot of promotional activity for us as well, and sponsoring an event with them, I think, is strengthening that relationship that we have with them. I think the benefit that we receive from doing things with MDA as a whole is much larger than this cost.
Huge, yeah.
I'd like to make one. Any other comments, questions? I'm okay with it. I just don't want to spend that $100. We can put it toward that, what Joe was talking about earlier, engineering, Kelsey?
Actually, I do have one question. So this is, on the agenda says private event request. So would you consider MDA a private event, or is this more like public focused to where we don't have to get into the realm of renting it out to private parties?
Well, so I would still ask that they work through NODA for insurance, just because, again, it's not necessarily under our umbrella. So I still feel like, from that sense, it would be private to me, where they need to go through NODA and figure out insurance, because we don't want to take responsibility for that.
You don't want MDA, right?
MDA, yes.
Do we have any kind of written policy on like what the intent or mission of the trolley is and who we're going to be running it to? I just remember other private event requests that we kind of tabled, and so now we're going to be letting other entities use it. Maybe we should.
I'm going to partially answer that a little bit too. To me, it kind of reminds me a little bit of the discussion about Washington Square. What's a DDA event versus not? So it's similar in concept to that discussion there. I don't know if I want to have it going out a lot because it's somewhat fragile.
Yep.
But there are things like what Grace is talking about. If we bring some people in Oxford, I can see that as under the auspices of our DDA.
So again, I'm in that mindset of, okay, this is a partnership with somebody we work with on, a weekly basis already almost, and it's not necessarily somebody who's just coming in and renting it for a family. Yeah, I know, it's so hard because there's such a fine line.
Okay, Kelsey?
I just want to say I like that approach, and so that's what I would encourage the board to consider using it for, is to keep it, benefiting our business and kind of the partnerships, but not go the private event rental route. So
Totally agree.
okay.
I think Grace should make a form.
Yeah. Okay, well, the third one there is definitely a partnership. Lake Orion reached out this week. We meet with them weekly anyways, but this was actually the day after our meeting. They would like to host a Oxford Lake Orion bar crawl, utilizing the trolley on September 9th, which is the day after our tailgate. So a wild weekend in Oxford. But, we've never, I don't think we've done a crawl since, I think you guys did one for Lone Ranger, right?
I did a couple of them.
Yeah, so I've never put together a bar crawl or anything like that, so we would, because they host them annually, we would kind of be looking at them to do most of the planning on this. I think it would be a lot of fun to utilize the trolley, as long as drinks are not going on the trolley. Very specific about that. But I do think that it's something that has come up in the community many a times that people would like to see, and we haven't done one yet. But again, I'm not a party planner, so this is completely up to you.
One quick comment about the whole thing about the bar crawls. One thing about Oxford is that it's easier for us to do a bar crawl here because you can walk. In Lower Oxford, they don't have that because it's spread out. That was one of the things. Their bar crawls, I don't mean to knock on them because I do obviously don't mind teasing a little bit, but they're still neighbors and friends. They just have a little bit more of a challenge because they do have to drive from spot to spot. We were able to walk. So a lot of that liability issue was diminished. But whether we want to participate, I don't know. That's a proposal, is it, Kelly, or just an FYI?
This is if you guys want to move forward with this, because I'm not going to start planning it without you guys saying, yes, this is something we're interested in.
So let's have some discussion. I don't know. Can I ask Bryce with some thoughts off the top of your head about what you think pros and cons?
Sounds like fun to me.
Something? Okay. How about Mr. Schultz?
Okay.
Grace?
Yeah, as long as there's interest from our local businesses and they think that this is going to be beneficial for them, then.
I did run it by Maria. I know she's not here tonight, but just being, a restaurant owner, and she was absolutely all for it. I actually asked her too, because it was going between, knowing that we had the tailgate, it was between then a Thursday and Saturday, and she I told her the date and the Saturday and what she felt in just kind of the bar community downtown. And she actually loved the idea and was hoping that we would move forward.
Just make sure you communicate that you don't want drinks on the trolley.
Yes.
And then have somebody there to take the burden off the driver, so the driver doesn't have to be the
Oh,
enforcement.
we just need Lou to drive. As long as Lou's driving the trolley, she'll
Well, she'll
go.
take care of it. Catherine, your comments
I
about this?
think it's a great idea, especially if the business owners want, you know, if they think it's gonna be helpful and good for them, then I'm all for
Dorothy?
it.
I agree, same.
This is good.
Are there signs on the trolley that say no
Yes, there
drinks?
is.
Okay, I
Yep.
couldn't remember from St. Patrick's Day,
Yeah.
but.
And we leave them up. We added some additional for St. Patty's Day, but they're up all the time.
Okay.
And I am happy to chaperone this event if need be. I'm sure Kimberly would say the same.
Good to know.
Well, you have to wear one of these things like with a billy club, like
Joe
an old
needs to be
fashioned.
chaperone.
You know what you gotta do is have these costumes as an old fashioned cop with the billy club and a big hat. That would be the way to do it. seriously.
Okay, what's 11? What's that next
So,
item?
so do you think we should have a resolution to that extent? I mean, that sounds to me like we should. I mean, what do you guys think? A resolution say we support
We're not
that?
spending anything.
We good?
I think as long as we voice our support, we're good.
Yeah.
Okay, so have we voiced our support? You feel comfortable doing that, Bruce, since you
Yes.
said that? Okay, cool. Long meeting, huh? Okay, nothing moved from the consent agenda. Board member comments. So let's start with Bryce, since I'm picking on him first. I'm trying to keep him awake.
My firstborn is due on September 9th, so maybe we can move that date up.
I don't think your wife would
But
appreciate
I
that.
probably will not be there.
Hope would say no, for sure.
Yeah, no, my only comments is that the farmer's market and the concerts in the park have been going great so far, and really excited to see what's going on downtown.
Pete?
Spent a lot of money tonight.
I know.
A lot of time.
Right.
The one thing, I know there's a little bit, but I think we need to push it even more, is that throughout the construction projects, whatever, there needs to be a whole bunch of signs all over the place, that this is by the DDA is paying for this and doing this. So that way they know that we're, that's where our money is going for, especially with the TIF plan coming up for renewal. I mean, get it out to as much as people know that this is what we're doing, and publicize it and get it in the paper. Do everything we can to make sure we get, signs all over
Yeah,
the
for
place on
sure.
this.
I did like that every time Oxford emailed out this week. Kelsey, you probably saw it with your kids there, but it said that the Oxford DDA is the beautification of the area behind their area. So every time I got it, I was like,
Yeah, I saw that.
But I totally agree, Pete, and I will work on some outdoor signage for that area, and then we'll just move it over behind Victoria's, and we'll just save it and move it. Yep.
Catherine?
Just congratulations, Grace, on your upcoming nuptials.
Yay.
We don't know if this person really exists.
I believe it.
He's at the apartment right now.
Dorothy?
I just want to say, I love the forward momentum that's going on. There's a lot of great ideas. I think some good concepts. I really love it. I think this is a great group. Yep.
Kelsey?
No comment, thank you.
What? No comment from Kelsey Cook?
Nope.
I'll have to make up for it then. Oh, no. I like what Dorothy said. I think the board, for the most part, we've done a pretty good job together working collegially. I've enjoyed it. I've been on boards that haven't had that, and DDA boards that haven't had that. So it's really a good thing. It makes it fun to be part of a board that works together like this. I mean, even when we disagree, I think we can do it and still be collegial,
Right.
which is really cool.
That's why we have t-shirts.
Oh, that's right. Another comment, that going back to what Grace said, you've seen things I've sent to the board about, as a township representative, SEMCOG and these population studies, and I sent one out to a few people too, from Peter Zihan, who's a geopolitical scientist about population declining across the world, by the way, not just in Michigan, but that's a growing trend. And it affects 48371, I'm not saying, because, we've got subdivisions coming in, right? Like Oxford Hills Golf Course, if you don't know that, has been sold. So that'll be another 300 houses. Those kinds of things are happening. But globally, population is not just frozen, but it's actually declining. So as we develop projects, it's something to keep in mind, I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer, but that's just how it goes, So thanks again, Bryce, for helping with that. The other thing is, congratulations again to
Mrs.
Kelly,
What did you bring this month?
because you have your thing coming up in August, right?
Well, yeah, but you guys are gonna see me the week before. We moved the meeting forward, so we have August.
Well, we want to be ready because I know right after, or right before that, there's an event, and I'm going to invite everybody here. We're going to have a little thing going on. So we have to have a little Vegas type of thing. What's your favorite game there, Kelly?
You enjoy some blackjack.
Blackjack.
Oh, boy.
So we're going to have a little Elvis event with some Las Vegas stuff, and Kelly likes blackjack, so we have some blackjack here.
Oh my god.
Can I throw this and you won't hurt yourself?
Blackjack chewing gum.
Oh, okay, sure, yeah, all right. Okay, I'll catch Vicky's for it.
Sorry, Kyle, I'll make one up for you, buddy. Whoa!
Well, you know, I would've-
Sorry, I'm not playing center
Stick
field.
to the DDA,
So Viva Las Vegas, I'm having a little event at my house August 12th, so I'm inviting people here there August 12th. I mean, I meant to tell you this, but Martin's coming. So if he's not at your nuptials, as Catherine described it, you'll understand why, okay? So Viva Las Vegas, August 12th at the Charles House. That's about it. Any other comments or questions from our esteemed DDA board? No?
Make a
Okay.
motion to adjourn.
There it is.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Who said that? Pete? And did it get seconded, or do we want to stay? Catherine seconded? Meeting adjourned.